Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest in the PhD podcast series here at the University of Limerick. And I'm delighted to welcome Michelle Daly from the School of Modern Languages and Applied Linguistics. Michelle, you're very, very welcome indeed. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Ger. I'm delighted to be part of this podcast. Looking forward to our discussion now today.
Great, me too. And I should say that you're, central to getting this series up and running. So you've been really integral to the whole process, which is, something we're all grateful for. Michelle, just to start off in terms of the questions, could you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your research project?
Absolutely, Ger. So as you said, my name is Michelle Daly, just to reiterate that for everybody listening today. And I'm coming from the School of Modern Languages and Applied Linguistics. And my research study is focused on intercultural awareness. So something that's very pertinent, I suppose, to the research right now and what's happening right now in terms of all the different movements and the importance of this. So what I'm particularly investigating is looking at Irish teachers and the challenges that they face working in the Gulf region in the Middle East. So that really is the kind of focus of my research.
Great. And where did this interest in your PhD come from, Michelle? And why the Gulf, I guess,
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Ger, I don't know if you know this already, but for the others listening today, I was teaching out in Dubai for 5 years at an international school. And during my time there, I faced many cultural difficulties. And I was also the manager within an English department. And so during that time, I saw firsthand and experienced the challenges that teachers face when they move out from Ireland, novice teachers in particular. So that really spiked my interest. And then with that, I returned back to UL to first conduct my master's. And in my dissertation of my master's, I focused on that, investigating the kind of intercultural challenges that Irish teachers face. And from my master's then, that stemmed into this idea of continuing it on and, researching this on a PhD level. So that really was where it stemmed from, my innate kind of first-hand experience of teaching in Dubai.
Okay, excellent. And so it's obvious, where the passion and the interest comes from in terms of your PhD, Michelle. But yes. Why then a PhD at the University of Limerick?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Why UL? I could have chosen any university. Why UL? But I suppose really for me, Ger, UL is a prime location. And even before I, applied to UL, I contacted past students of the course within the master's and the PhD and asked them firsthand about their experiences. So that really guided me as well, And also UL is such a prime location. Like if you think about the School of Modern Languages and Applied Linguistics, they have such a great reputation in terms of scholarly output, even the different research clusters we have across the university, but CALS is the main one that I am involved in. So that again was another great decision that focused me in why I wanted to come to UL. So yeah, that's really why it was. I suppose talking to students as well as the benefits that I saw that I could get from studying at UL.
Great. And just to clarify, you mentioned CALS. Could you just tell us what CALS stands for?
Yeah, the Centre for Applied Languages. So it really is a fantastic cluster of both PhD students, faculty members, but also a wider scope in terms of faculty around the world. So, for example, we'd have a yearly annual conference, and it's a great, I suppose, platform to link in with faculty members from other universities as well that have similar interests.
Excellent.
And I know there's many research clusters like this in UL. So again, another prime reason why you should study at UL.
Great. And What are you working on right now, Michelle? And could you tell us kind of a milestone that you have in your PhD that you're working towards?
Yeah, absolutely, Ger. So right now I'm in the midst of my data collection. So this is an exciting
Mm,
phase. I suppose I've divided up my data collection into three phases. So the first phase I completed already, and that was looking at novice teachers in UL. So they're studying TESOL modules, for example. So I investigated their perceptions. So a lot of them have interest, in going out to Dubai to teach
mm.
to the Middle East. It's an up and coming trending area, right? So I investigated their perceptions, to find out what do they know about the Middle East before going out there, what do they expect. And now I'm in the middle phase of interviewing teachers in Dubai to find out firsthand, well, what kind of challenges do you face? And how would you advise that we can, create a training program that will help novice teachers moving out? So this will inform educational practices.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm also, Ger, going to interview local L1 Arabic managers. So I'm
Mm.
also looking at that, intercultural perspective of both the Irish teachers and the Arabic managers to find out both perspectives on what the needs are and the training requirements for novice teachers.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely fascinating, Michelle. And
Yeah.
you said you're now at the stage of your data collection, and that should
Yes.
yield like really, really insightful results. So
Yes.
I'm wondering about, I suppose my next question would have been, what's a typical day for you in terms of your PhD? And you might say there's no such thing as a typical day, but could you give us an example, say, of maybe a day, in terms of your data collection, what that would consist of in terms of,
Yeah.
just to give people an insight into, what is an essential process for so many doing a PhD, an essential element of the PhD, the
Yeah,
data collection.
absolutely, Ger. And I suppose everybody has a different kind of mindset of how, they go about their daily routine in terms of their PhDs. I know, especially in science and engineering, there's a lot of lab work required. But for me, it really is desk work. It really is
Mm,
working at the desk. I take it as a job, Ger, 9 to 5
mm,
every day, and I would divide up my time I suppose, to really make the most out of it, in terms of productivity. And so that would mean in the morning, for example, I would use that as my writing time, because that's my
mm.
most productive time of the day. I like to sit and do my writing in the morning. And that really is writing in my literature review, for example. And then in terms of my data collection, you asked me what that looks like right now. And it involves, contacting gatekeepers, so managers within international schools, managers of English departments in the Middle East, and using these gatekeepers then to, attract, I suppose, teachers to answer the questionnaires and, come back to me and say they want to be involved in a focus group, for example. So that really is great. And Ger, I suppose another thing I want to point out here is the importance of using contacts that you have already. Those gatekeepers are fundamental in my
Mm.
research. They really are.
Okay, great. And that would lead me, I guess, to the next question, Michelle. It sounds like, you have, way of working and a meticulous way of working and a very structured way of undertaking your research.
Yes.
But as I'm sure, like everybody else doing a PhD, there have been instances where you've encountered some obstacle, some difficulty, some problem along the way. And so I'm just going to ask you to give us an example of one of those issues that you confronted and how you approached that issue and maybe even overcame it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ger.
Mhm.
I think I'll, take the approach here of something that might be applicable, I think, to all PhD researchers, and that is overcoming writer's block.
Mm,
I mean, that is a key issue that, any researcher will face, right? We don't always have those levels of productivity all the time. So yes, I definitely have experienced writer's block. And how I've overcome this, has been really to focus my day, as you just said there, to divide up your day into manageable chunks. Even if that means you're just writing, 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs in a morning, it doesn't have to be perfect, but even just having that skeleton outline and working from the skeleton outline into writing, full sentences, for example, and then writing a paragraph, you feel such a sense of relief afterwards. And I also work in the Writing Centre. I'm a peer tutor in the Writing Centre. I've been working there since January 2019, so 2 years now. And I meet an awful lot of students, undergraduates, postgraduate students, a lot of PhD students come into us, and that is a key concern, writer's block. So they're the strategies I use: create a skeleton outline and just start free writing from there and break it up into manageable chunks that you can achieve.
Yeah, that's really, really top class advice, Michelle. And just to go on to the next question then, and that's, I'm not, it's so important, just that whole issue of writer's block, something I think that people always encounter, in,
Yes.
be it at whatever level, they find some element of difficulty with regard to writing and getting something down. But what you've outlined there is that's excellent advice, and I think that's just, you could transpose that to any discipline whatsoever, so, and
Absolutely, Ger.
it's,
And as well, in the Writing Centre, they do fantastic PhD writers retreats. So that is something I would encourage researchers to sign up for. But also there's many online writing groups that you can, be a member of, and you just literally sit there and write together. Like, what an idea now amidst COVID,
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. And Michelle, you've talked about, the issue with regard to, like Irish teachers in the Gulf states, just about intercultural awareness, issue of intercultural awareness. I'm going to ask you about, an issue which comes up again and again, ever more so now, with regard to research, and that's the impact of research, and just about what would you see as, potentially the impact of your research, not only in wider society, but within academia as well.
Absolutely, Ger. I mean, that is a key question nowadays, and we have to be able to show the impact of our research, right? So in terms of my research, I mean, it is really important at doctoral level that we are able to show how we can produce new knowledge and add to the field. And that is really important. And I'm learning that as I go along in this journey, how I can add to the growing body of literature, and how I find that gap, where my area is, novice or novel. And I suppose that really is important, because there's a lot of work done in my research in terms of the learner's perspectives to intercultural awareness, but not so much on the teacher's perspective, and especially, Ger, in terms of the context that it's in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates. So that is very novel to my research, which I hope will have an impact to the growing body of literature. But as well as that, in terms of wider society, I suppose we think to the internationalization strategy in Ireland, but as well as the university, if we look at our own internationalization strategy, and that stems right down to the School of Modern Languages and Applied Linguistics. This features even within our mission statement, that we aim to create and produce, a knowledge, and to have students who are global citizens and interculturally competent. So I see that very clearly in our mission statement in Malal, as well as our internationalization statement in UL, as well as national policy. So that's where I see the link with my research, but not just within that. There's also other disciplines. It's interdisciplinary. So we think about intercultural competence nowadays being so important in all sorts of fields, from engineering to business, any kind of a field like this. So that really, I suppose, interests me, and it's wide varying in terms of where is my career going to go. So yeah, I
Yeah,
hope
no,
that answers your question.
that's a great answer. Uh, and just when you talk there about, where your career is going to go, and again, it's the question so many people dread, but what are your uh, career aspirations after you graduate, Michelle?
Oh,
I
that's
know
a tough
people
question.
sometimes say, "Oh, this is the question that their parents ask them and that they try to avoid answering all the time." But since you
Yeah,
brought it up there, I have to ask about what your aspirations are career-wise after your
very
PhD.
tough question to answer, Jer. It really is. But I suppose one key piece of advice that I recently received from Elaine Kiley in the careers department, like she does exceptional work with PhD students. And one piece of advice that she gave me, and I took this on board, is to create, an Excel file of where you see yourself in terms of academia or in terms of industry. Like, for example, who are the key membership groups that are related to me and my research? So I've been trying to kind of identify these, and this could be, public bodies or private bodies, and look at the kind of jobs that they're advertising and how my skills match that. So in terms of career aspirations, absolutely, I hope to add knowledge to my field, an area of expertise. But then looking at industry, looking in terms of intercultural awareness coaching, like there's an opportunity. Nowadays, I think with COVID and what's happened, the pandemic that we're in, you hear a lot in terms of different movements, and diversity is at the forefront, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and all that goes with that. So I think it's really important now that we're able to identify academic careers, but also non-academic careers. And that comes up in many grant applications. I know it came up in the IRC, for example, and being able to have a clear plan and open to opportunities. That's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
it's very much to the fore now. We see more and more of this, and more about, disseminating or explaining your research to, non-academic audiences, is deemed to be, increasingly more important. So that's great to know, Michelle, just about, what you said there in terms of, your own career aspirations and the diverse paths that are open to you, and anybody who is, coming out of the school of modern languages and applied linguistics. So, what would you say are the advantages at the moment of doing a PhD, say, compared to a typical job, perhaps, that somebody with your qualifications might be doing at this stage? What would you say is the primary advantage of undertaking a PhD?
Sure, there's so many advantages of undertaking a PhD, but I suppose how does it make me, stand out, for example, in an interview, or make me competitive? Well, I think there are so many fantastic transferable skills that we are learning throughout this process. And like, if I think, the first skill of being constantly, put down or maybe facing issues or challenges. I mean, that is a key skill that we're able to overcome such challenges, and that we're kind of not used to this, but it's definitely a big part of the PhD research journey. So that, as well as communication skills, we have to communicate to non-specialist audiences, as well as write in scholarly outputs. So communication is key. There are many other fantastic skills that we can really, I suppose, talk about in an interview situation, if it was to a non-academic audience or to industry jobs, for example. But I probably not even highlighted that many there, but there are many.
No, you highlighted plenty. That's fine, Michelle. That's great. So just in terms of, say, someone who is thinking of, and I think you've, really answered there, almost wholly or certainly partly my last question, which would be, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of doing a PhD, not necessarily a PhD at the University of Limerick, but just thinking of doing a PhD, as part of their career plan? What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think back to when I was in that situation, what I would like to have known. And I would definitely suggest talking to current PhD students, reach out, talk to them and ask them the questions, because you'll get great insights, that first-hand knowledge. As well, it's something that must sustain interest for a long length of time. So ensure that it's something that you are innately interested in, and that might stem from your own past experience, for example, but just to ensure that that's on board. And as well, actually, recently I did a guest lecture to undergraduate students on teaching opportunities in Dubai. And I was telling them, keep your options open. Apply for a master's as well. Look at the fee awards and bursaries that are available, as well as, applying for jobs. So keep your options open. I think that's my advice.
Great. That's excellent. That's a great way to finish, Michelle. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here today and to hear about your research and your future plans and the advantages of doing a PhD. And you gave us so many wonderful insights, and you've really opened our eyes, to that not only to doing a PhD, but to your own research and just how important that is, and indeed to the whole area of intercultural awareness and just how fundamental that is, to our understanding of the world today. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ger. I really appreciate it. And thank you for chairing all these wonderful talks. I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of views afterwards. People will be very interested to hear firsthand from the researchers' experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Michelle.
Slán.
Take care. Slán. Slán Tamil. Bye, Michelle. Bye-bye.